So I always like to start with a little bit of gratitude. Thanks for staying late. I'm going to talk a bit about marketing perspective. I love that last presentation. We're obviously very looped into what's going on with GDPR, but a lot of new changes coming. And I want to thank Randy, who's at the back, who helps me put these things together. And thanks to all of you. So that is me, actually in my car. I drive a European car, which is a DeLorean. Okay, that's actually my daily driver. And it's the only car ever made in Ireland. So the DeLorean is the world's only Irish production car. And so every year in the St. Patrick's Day parade, all around the world, they ask for DeLoreans to be in the parade. And so this is the Seattle St. Patrick's Day parade. And you can see I actually have undercar lighting, and it's green. If you can just see that little green halo, that's the undercar lighting on the car. And so yeah, so it's really that is what I love about the DeLorean. It's kind of made from all sorts of different European cars. It's got a Renault transmission. It's got a Volvo engine. The steel is made in Germany. The car was designed by Lotus. The frame was made by Lotus. The gas caps from Jaguar. You know, there's like little bits and pieces. The washers are from like Fiat. Like it's literally made. It's a pan-European car. Although it's very often thought of as an American car. Anyway, so let's kind of go into this. I like this theme because it talks about going into the future. So we're going to zip into the future. My background really quickly, started my career at Procter & Gamble, spent a decade there selling soap and learning all about how soap is made. So if you ever want to know how soap is made, talk to me. Okay, it's disgusting. And and if you want to know what fabric softener is? Yeah? I want to know? Anyone want to know what fabric softener is? Fabric softener is a bottle of clay. Yeah, it's a bottle of clay. Because the way you get fabric soft is you make the fibers stand apart. And when you make them stand apart, they feel soft. And so the way you make them stand apart is you cover them in clay. That's why fabric softener has to go in the end of the rinse cycle. Right? Because if you put it in the on-wash cycle, it'll get taken away because it's dirt. Right? So that's one of those, like whenever someone asks you to put a product on after the wash cycle, that means that product is dirt. That's just a tip. Okay? And so the next time you're putting conditioner in your hair, think about why the conditioner goes in after the shampoo, not before the shampoo. Okay? Little eyes there. All right. And then I did a bunch of startups. I spent 12 years doing startups, and some made some money, some didn't. Some died, some lived, some are still around. But it was a really great time, and that's where I really learned how to become more of a technologist. And there's kind of a theme here. And then I actually got to a point where I was enough of a technologist that I was actually hired by Microsoft Research to actually launch Microsoft's first cloud product, which was really, really cool. Hi, just kind of back here. How you all doing? Yeah, good? Okay, awesome. And so what's the point of this slide, right? So what's the point of this slide? So like the thing about this slide, which is interesting for me, is that, you know, being a marketer today is being part technologist and part marketer. You got to have a variety of different things built in there. And for me, when I talk to people, they'll often say, well, I don't really feel like I'm a technologist or I'm not technical. And my comment is always the same, which is get technical. And get technical quickly because we live in a technical time. So I'm going to talk a little bit about, you know, kind of what I do and sort of how my sort of life works and what my stack looks like. And then we have a few minutes for questions, we can talk about it. But some of this stuff's online, so you can follow up. These are all my handles. I had kind of a weird name. Sort of in the intro, you were sort of like, this is such a weird name, I have to look it up. Yeah, I appreciated that. No, well, it's only eight actual characters, but it is a strange name. And so sometimes people ask me, you know, where did the name Grad Conn come from? Because, you know, it's like, I've never heard that name before. And in fact, I think I'm the only one in the world because I own all the handles. And whenever I go onto a new site, I put in Grad Conn, I'm never Grad Conn 51. Like I'm always just Grad Conn, okay? And so the story is that when I was born, that's kind of when I got my name, right? And so the funny part of the story is like the way I got my name and the way it was kind of given to me was that my parents gave me my name. Yeah, I know, weird. Eh? And so then, but why that name? So they couldn't agree on what to call me, so they took me home from the hospital without a name. And actually spent the first week arguing as two stressed out, sleep-deprived parents what they should call me. And in the end, they decided on a compromise. And this is like, as far as I know, the only compromise my parents ever actually successfully accomplished, which was they decided to give me, my first name, Grad, is my mother's maiden name. She's Polish. So it's kind of Leningrad, Stalingrad, that kind of stuff, right? And so my mother's maiden name is my first name, and then my last name is my father's maiden name. Still think about that for a second. Everyone's checking their sexism right now. Okay, good. All right. Okay, fine, let's keep going. All right, so one thing that is not mine, the only thing I don't have is gradconn.com. So if you go to gradconn.com thinking that must be him too, I am not running a semiconductor company on the side from China. And so that's not me. And I will just say, just to point out, if you go there, you'll see it says, Grad Conn offered tiny connector solutions. I just want to say that's an outrageous comment. There's no trouble in that area, and I'm just offended that they would even say that in the first place. I just want to clear the air right now for everybody. That's not true. All right, so let's keep going here. So I want to start just really quick. This is a super kind of quick transformation video. This is times are changing really quickly, and this is one of my favorite ways of talking about how to make change. So the insight of this video is when you're riding a bike at speed, let's say 20 miles an hour, 90% of your physical energy is going into overcoming the sail that is your body, right? Because your body effectively forms a sail. So watch how this person transformed with that insight. So he's at the back of the pack, he's riding in Italy, and he's gonna, what? Well, look at that transformation, okay? 2 words, core strength. Okay, so he is now basically he's gotten rid of the sail, right? Totally changed the way he's riding. Now he's passing a bunch of other riders. You can think about it, imagine that's Amazon, and he just went by, Sears, and who else would we throw out there? Who else is he going by? There's Nordstrom coming up here. They passed Macy's, So Amazon's continuing to go here. As he gets a little bit closer, he's going to shout out on your left, but obviously in Italian. And just a quick thing, nothing bad happens in this video. This isn't a cautionary tale of transformation. Okay, so everything's going to be fine. And he passes Nordstrom, here we go. Okay, so Amazon's now catching up on Walmart. Walmart's super, super relaxed, just in the front, not even on a bike anymore. It's just like so far ahead. Well, I can do that too. Yeah, baby. We still really catch up. Anyway, this is just love that video. And then this is the one part that looks super terrifying, but this is where, I don't know how you practice this, but check this out, okay? Watch those pedals, look at the speed. And yes! Man, that is awesome. Anyway, I thought that's someone, should we show that to all our sales teams at Microsoft right now? We're going through quite a bit of change, and we're always like, hey, you know what? You could be doing that. So just relax, okay? Could be a lot worse. Anyway, so this is some end of the summer, and I love this visual because, when you're having fun time at the beach or when you're sort of in the middle of change, sometimes it's hard to feel like you're in the middle of change. And, I saw this analogy when I was actually at Adweek in London, and they talked about being inside the hourglass. And, for a long time when you're inside the hourglass, it doesn't really feel like the hourglass is going down. This is what happened in retail for a long time, until you get to the mouth of the hourglass. And the quote is just great, because if you don't like change, great, but you're gonna like your relevance even less. And I think that's just a great way to think about it. All right, so things are changing a lot for CMOs. So I'm a CMO for Microsoft US, and it's kind of been a tricky world, right? So what's happened is that CMOs' jobs have changed in that they are now responsible for revenue. It didn't used to happen that way. It used to be responsible for branding and making things look pretty and PR and making sure the CEO got lots of attention. But now I got to build the business and I've got to sort of measurability around that. And I'm making a lot of decisions around technology. And for most CMOs, they don't have any training in technology. They didn't grow up in the tech space. They don't know anything about technology. But more than half the time they're involved in a decision. And in some decisions, they're the major decision maker. So this change has really caused the growth of the MarkTech industry. I'm actually going to use that Scott Brinker slide that you have in a minute because, in fact, there it is. And so this is the MarkTech Landscape. It's more than 5,000 vendors. Last year it was 3,800. Each year we're adding 1,200 vendors. But what does that mean? I actually don't think that's a statement of power, by the way. And I'm not trying to be super disagreeable or anything, punch that out afterwards. But what it is it's the sign of a new industry. It's a sign of a new industry. And whenever you get a new industry, you get a lot of change, you get a lot of sort of chaos. Now what happens, of course, is everyone's got these stacks. There's actually a Stacky Award that they have at the MarkTech Awards, and the Stacky Award is given to the person with the best stack, I guess, or the most stack, or the stackiest stack. I don't actually know how they decide it. But like, look at these things that people are trying to run. I mean, whoever built this is either, you know, insane or gone. Like, you know, just like, I don't know how you run that, right? Or how that even makes any sense, right? And so, you know, the challenge as a result is that marketers are just confused, right? And so I always feel like this sort of, people sort of assign a lot of power to marketers. I think most marketers just like trying to keep the jobs, really, really confused, got vendors talking to them all the time. It's a tough world. Anyway, so I have hope in some ways. So there's a fantastic book by Alfred P. Sloan called My Years at General Motors. It's a really interesting book. It's written as a biography, but has no personal information in it. It's often widely misinterpreted as this person had no personal life, but he wrote it as a biography for his managers. It's actually Bill Gates' favorite book. And it's the book Bill Gates used to figure out a lot of what we do at Microsoft. So it's a really interesting book. And he talks about the history of the automotive industry. And what's cool when you read this book is they talk about making gas. There was no standard for gas. You could potentially blow your engine up depending on the gas you put in. And so what's super cool is he talks about, you know, all the different car companies that were out there. And if you look at the time, there were hundreds of car companies. So while there may be thousands of MarkTech vendors, there were hundreds of car companies. And that was, you know, really tough. You know, Spencer Tracy owns a DeSoto, for example. And so eventually what happened over time, of course, is it devolved down to 3. And the history of that is a very interesting history, and you get a lot of that from the book. It basically runs from 1912 to 1965, through the whole evolution. And so that's the same thing that's going to be happening in the MarkTech landscape. We're going to see this devolution to a few very, very large players. And so let's talk about sort of why. So this is my customer life cycle. This is how I think about my business on a day-to-day basis. It's not dissimilar from most people's customer life cycles, but this is what we use sort of officially inside Microsoft US. And so we start with anonymous and we go all the way to fan. And we actually align all of our tools and systems around that structure. I actually have a Power BI dashboard that's lined up against that. And although I do have multiple systems, I don't have quite as many as most people, but let's say 57 might be a number. They're all fed into a power, just an example. 57 is just an example number. Could be something else like 57. And so it feeds into this Power BI dashboard, and at least I get a cohesive view. So I used to work in healthcare, and part of the challenge sometimes with data is how do you get it to like be integrated even though the systems aren't integrated. And so this is like integration on the glass. Right, so at some point it integrates at least on the glass. And so that's my Power BI dashboard. And you know, that goes through these steps of advertising automation, which is unknown. Marketing automation, we use Marketo and Adobe for that. Field marketing automation, which are tools like Follows. Sales automation, which is a CRM tool, pretty well understood. Commerce services, most of our commerce services are homemade. And then customer service software, which is probably the oldest of these categories. And so this sort of life cycle, you know, sort of sit it all down. What's happened is you've got effectively an industry under each one of those life cycle points, which when you think about it is a little bit bananas, because there's a separate industry for each point along a single customer life cycle. And that was maybe the insight for me that really got me passionate about how do we fix that. This is my stack, which is more complex than I'd like it to be, but it is effectively LinkedIn, Adobe, Sprinklr, and Dynamics. So it's like not too insane, and Dynamics is spreading, and Adobe's spreading, and Sprinklr's spreading, so they're all kind of working together pretty well. And so I don't have the sort of the insanity of some of those other ones we saw. But I still have a bunch of separate databases. Right? And each one of those systems drives a different ID, different UI, different database, different login, all that kind of stuff. And the result is lack of real consistency across this sort of customer experience management lifecycle. And so if you want to talk about it from being like customers, you know, they really want to have a consistent experience with the company. Like when I go into a Microsoft store, I would like them to know that I'm in the process of considering a $10 million CRM purchase. I'd like them to know that I visited the website. I'd like them to know those things about me, just like I'd like my friends to know about me when I see them. It's almost, imagine if you went to go see your friends on a Friday night and all they knew about you was what they learned about you that Friday night, right? Like, imagine if you had a bad Friday night. Right? We've all had them. Don't you shake your head. We've all had a bad Friday night, okay? And friends have a history with you, and they're like, Grad's like having a bad day. It's okay. But for most companies, we walk in mostly as strangers. This is not very well integrated. And so, what are we going to do about that? So my proposal, which we've been working with Dun & Bradstreet on, and Dun & Bradstreet just signed a strategic deal, is that we actually try to unify as an industry on a single customer ID system. And so this would be the DUNS number, which is Dun & Bradstreet's assigned a number to every company in the world. It's a bit of a B2B perspective on that. And then 12 other factors, so there's 13 in total, 12 other factors that create sort of a single customer ID that we could unify on. And that sort of single ID would actually move through the system. Now, where this would be really cool from an innovation standpoint is that there is, this has happened in ERP before, right? So in ERP, what happened, right? We created a single product ID, and then with the single product ID, we were able to unify inventory systems, manufacturing systems, warehousing systems, and we really got efficient in the cycle because we knew end-to-end what was happening with that product from raw materials all the way to shelf. We don't have that visibility in marketing right now. We don't know what's happening end-to-end. If we had a single customer ID, what we'd be able to do is the systems would be able to actually be able to inform each other, but more importantly, as marketers, we could take more risks with technology because the customer ID is not vendor dependent. And it's this vendor lock issue that kills innovation. Because it's like, well, am I betting on Salesforce? Well, there are a bunch of different applications basically. Am I betting on Dynamics? Well, then I need, who am I betting on? When you feel like you're betting on someone, it kind of kills innovation because you wait. But if you're like, hey, you know what? I don't have to bet on anybody. I'll use the tools of a single customer ID system. It'll be really powerful. So this is what we're building right now. There's another thing about customer ID which is kind of cool, which is where we're going is a lot of this stuff's changing so quickly because we're going to a world where it's going to be AI based. Satya has got multiple speeches over the last few months where he says AI is the future of Microsoft. We now have 5,000 people in our AI group. 5,000 people. And we're hiring like, if you're into AI, by the way, we're hiring like crazy. And so, what's that? You can smell it? Spell it, AI. You can spell AI. Can you be hired if you can spell AI? Well, if it was the .com years, the answer would be yes, with a big signing bonus. I think it's, if you can spell out the words behind AI, if you got to be able to spell artificial, if you can do that, no errors, then you'll be fine. Anyway, so what's going to happen is you're going to start to join together lots of things. Like, I want to know if someone's a Microsoft shareholder. That's not a marketing interaction. The biggest problem we have in our marketing systems is they measure marketing interactions like those are the only interactions people have with us, which is obviously ridiculous. In fact, the marketing interactions are probably the smallest number of interactions people have, and in many cases, and this is why I love the last presentation so much, the most irritating part of their relationship with us. And that's not really a great measure of the relationship we have with someone. And so, and what we're working on today, and we're doing this right now, we have this running, and we're using it in a bunch of different areas in sales, with something called an interaction cloud. So I'm just going to do sort of a fun thing. This will be just, I'm almost near the end here. This will be a little audience test here, which is how many people here are huge fans of Japanese TV commercials? Okay, I am. So am I the only one, really? They're awesome. All right, okay. Well, we're gonna run 2 Japanese TV commercials here, and I'm gonna see just how sharp this audience is. And these 2 commercials were both produced at the same time for the same brand, Claret's, and they were tested against each other. One of them won in testing and one in market. And it was like a 60-40. It wasn't like one was horrible and one was, but one was a clear winner. And I'm gonna play them both back to back. We're gonna see what the room thinks, and then I'm gonna tell you an interesting story about it. So here's the first one. Ooh. Go back? Yeah. Did I go too fast? Sorry, I ruined everything now. All right, try again. Interesting. They won't play on this machine. Well, it was an amazing, amazing story. Oh my God, you would have loved it so much. This is a little bit about how we test our stuff beforehand, and no, that's not working either. Okay, so here's the point. I'm just going to jump to the point. It's okay. One is this like flying dog that's barfing clarets all over you, and it's like singing. No, seriously, it's barfing clarets, green stuff everywhere, and it's insane. It's like crazy ad, and you think, wow, what mind would have come up with that? The second one is this beautiful humanistic piece where she's painting on the ground. The one with the barfing dog wins, and wins handily. Okay. The thing about the barfing dog one, which is really interesting, is it's made by a machine. So the first ad is actually made by a machine, and the AI actually created the ad itself. They're actually starting to use the same machine now to create pop songs, which seems like a lower bar, in my opinion. Yeah. But yeah, it doesn't seem that hard. How I could do a pop song. But anyway, so but they're actually what they're doing now. So it's a very interesting story about sort of the future of where it's all going. So I'm going to end with one last video. And this is just another really cool transformation video. I'm originally from Canada, although I'm an American now. But this is actually, I think, Russia. And it's just a cool way of thinking about scoring goals. So I played hockey for many, many years. It never occurred to me to do this. Oh, man.
Wave your hands a little bit more, that's what I do.
This is a really cool video too. The other one worked.
I'm confident.
There we go. Okay, good. Maybe we can show the Japanese ones. Yeah. Okay, so here he goes, and we're gonna do a replay. Don't worry. But what I love about this one is just like the attitude too. He's like, you know, it looks like he's going down for a regular sort of penalty shot, right? He's down in the ice. It's a little bit, oh, whoa, now the puck's in the air, and he's like, you know what? If this doesn't go in the net, I don't care, because I'm spearing that goalie. Yeah! Boom! And then his attitude as he skates off, he's like, yeah, there you go. That's how you do it. All right. Okay, Mandy, let's go back to the Japanese commercials. What did you do there? That was pretty cool. Did you just like pulled out and pulled back in again? Yeah, all right. And then also, okay, here we go. Here's the barfing dog. See, this is a really cool thing because they play both ads. They get you all to guess which one's the one you won. Then I tell you the AI did it, and it's all shot. Here we go. You thought I was kidding about the barf, right? So just as an exciting sort of nod to the future, as more and more ads are made by AI, we getting used to that kind of. That's what we're doing. A lot more of that. Okay, here's and this is what the humans came up with. Beautiful ad. Didn't work. Anyway, and I do think that, you know, for me, I think there's always this kind of unintended thing, right? Like if you think, I was going through a folder recently which had all of my sort of internet presentations from the 90s. I had done a bunch of work at Procter & Gamble talking about the impact of the internet, and wow, was I an idealistic, naive fool. Like, it was all about universities online, and people were gonna be listening to operas, and like I didn't mention cats once, not one time. I had a cat in this one, right? I didn't mention cats. I didn't talk about dog videos. I didn't talk about all the stuff that's in there now, and so it's will be exciting to see where AI takes us from what is really deep inside the human soul. I think that's what AI really discovers, because there's a little bit of, I think what happens with humans is that the way we like to present ourselves to others is quite different from what we really like to do. And I think what the internet is exposing is what we really like to do versus what we like to present. Anyway, I hope that was interesting, a lot of fun, a really nice crowd, actually great audience. And if there are any questions, I can take a couple and then we'll wrap up. Yes, sir.
So from the consumer standpoint, where do you think AI is going? Like, where it's really like stagnant, it's actually going
Yeah. Well, like I said, I have recently looked at my predictions from the 90s, and I'm humbled by trying to make many more predictions now, but I'm going to go ahead anyway. And I think the challenge is that I think part of the AI issue, in my opinion, is making sure people know who they're dealing with or what they're dealing with. And so we've got this really cool AI construct right now called ZO, which is if you go to facebook.com/ZO, Z-O, or Z-O, it is effectively a AI that will talk to you. It's got the intelligence, kind of feels like about 7 or 8, roughly, years old. It's not bad. And what's really cool about it, what we found really compelling for people, is that it instantly responds. Whereas if you think, like a lot of human interaction, I am or text someone, and they don't necessarily get back to you. And Zoe gets back to you like instantly. And even though their responses are not deep yet, they're deeper than they were when Zoe started. She was 3. Okay, so it's like definitely moving along. It's really got kind of compelling, but you have to make sure people know they're talking to a machine, right? But they'll still sort of jump there. The second thing is we find that it's really useful when people want to know information, because it's too hard to navigate websites. I don't even know if people really use the web anymore. People kind of like Facebook, mobile phones, like just the idea of navigating a website to find info. So chatbots have become really successful. Just I want to find out what the park opening times are, when my plane's leaving, I want to schedule something. So that kind of stuff I think is going to help a lot. We're using AI a lot right now in the sales force to predict their next customer they should call. So instead of going to a CRM system and trying to figure it out or plan it out, it'll actually look at all the different factors and propensity to buy models and say, you should call Grad. And by the way, his daughter's birthday is tomorrow. And this is the product that we see there's no. And so when the conversation happens, it's still a human conversation, but now it's like, hey, wish your daughter a happy birthday for me. I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. And so that's kind of as far as I'm willing to go. I don't know if we're going to be bubble people. I noticed that human beings continue to do more things. We seem to find, like, despite the growth of machines over many centuries now, we still find things to do, and we still find ways to make more humans. I mean, there's no problem in that department. We are great at making more humans, and we're great at finding new things to do. So, I'm mostly optimistic. My personality too, though. Any other? Yes, at the back.
Any thoughts about the Toys to Life category? And the toys that the kids are engaging with and how AI is coming in?
Well, so how will someone interact with the toy differently? It's the word, even the word toy is kind of a tricky word these days. Like we own Minecraft. And is that a toy? I mean, it's play. It's play. And certainly it's a world that people can live in. Educators are increasingly talking about doing it in Minecraft because that's sort of where the kids are. It's harder to do it in sort of the normal setting. So I do think that what will happen is you'll see AI agents in those environments operating. And again, I think the tricky thing with kids is will they be able to tell Zoe apart from a real person? Especially with Zoe, like try it out. I think I'm right on 7 to 8 years old. Well, if you're 5 years old, Zoe's going to sound pretty wise. And so I think there's issues there. I think there could be some very interesting sticky areas. I don't think kids will have as many physical toys. And there was actually a massive rush of those things back in the 80s and 90s. You remember Teddy Ruxpin and all that kind of stuff, right? And they kind of, kids tend to like to use their imagination more, and so the imagination is more active in sort of an online environment. One little kind of interesting fun fact, who Mary Meeker is? She does the Internet Trend Study every year. She works for Kleiner Perkins, and she's been doing it for a long time. She just did her most recent one a few months ago. My only must read of the year is that 355-page deck that Mary Meeker comes out with. And there's a really great section where it talks about time spent on social networks. And so Facebook's obviously significant, as is Snapchat, et cetera, et cetera. But the number one social network is gaming, bigger than Facebook. So I think gaming, those kind of virtual environments, that's really the toy of the future. And they'll be lousy with AIs and bots and all sorts of stuff, yeah. That was a cool question. I never had that question before. Anything else?
I have one question.
Yes.
You talked about core business data as slide.
Yeah.
The investors and
Yep.
Microsoft coming together as customer identifier.
Yep.
Can you elaborate on it a little bit? I cannot get key words in that.
Well,
What is that?
I'm happy to talk afterwards in detail, but at a sort of high level, and actually they're here tomorrow. And I led this deal with Dun & Bradstreet because it's very marketing centric. So we've created a strategic relationship with Dun & Bradstreet. They've sort of adopted the full Microsoft stack, and they're moving all the Dun & Bradstreet systems onto Azure. And then we are conversely exposing Dun & Bradstreet data through Dynamics in Office. And there's a new thing that's, I don't know if you've heard of this thing called a common data system, which is this middle layer that we've built. Because part of the problem with cloud apps and cloud ISVs is that everyone's revving it like sometimes daily, and certainly weekly and bi-weekly. And so what was happening is that people with API connections into apps were having a hard time keeping pace with the changes in the apps, and it's hard to get data to move correctly. So we created CDS, and effectively our contract is we maintain state with CDS, and ISV maintains state with CDS. And CDS navigates between the two so you can expose the data without having to maintain and update API connections every day. And so they're one of the first ones on that, and they'll be demoing it at Envision at Ignite. So we have our big conference is September 20th in Orlando. It's our major customer conference. And so we'll have them showing that technology off. There's a bunch of other ones coming up. AdTech will be there. They'll be showing it off there too. And basically using sort of that CDS layer to expose data and then to unify on that sort of core business data. Yeah. So it's kind of cool. And they're a neat story too, because they've still got IBM mainframes. Some so old, and I don't think they would be bothered if I said this, but some so old that the only way they keep them running is they have to go on eBay to buy the parts because they don't make them anymore. Right? And too many nodding heads in the room on that one, actually. That was a little disturbing. Anyway, so they're moving all that to the cloud, right? And for them, they've always been very batch mode, and they've been sort of a bit of an old-fashioned process. They're going to real-time, self-serve, so it can be a very different Dun & Bradstreet coming out. It's very exciting. Yeah. Yes?
I had a question. So you had your diagram of all the different circles that Microsoft is doing. And Microsoft,
The circles that Microsoft's doing.
You know,
Yeah,
like,
that's good.
your little circles.
I see it sunk in. That's great. The systems of nurture. I got it. Yeah. No, thanks for listening. I get it.
Microsoft has a huge resources in
Yeah.
putting 5,000 people towards AI. But
Yeah.
yet you still showed different software, like you're still using Adobe.
We did. Yeah.
Why are you using Adobe when you've got 5,000 people doing AI?
Well, good question. Yeah, that's an excellent question. Yeah, I've asked that question.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just to be fair, I mean, I think my other uber point was the MarkTech industry is super young. Like, think about Marketo. Started in 2006. Right? Serious Decisions started in 2002. Like, we're talking about an industry that's not even really 15 years old yet. Right? So a lot of rapid innovation. Adobe's got a lot of advantages because of the size of their cookie pool and the technologies that they have, and their very strong advertising automation model. And so, and they're also fully re-platformed on Azure as well. So we always like people who fully re-platform onto Azure, just as kind of a tip. And so Sprinkler also on Azure. And so I'd say that what we're doing right now is trying not to use too many things, but it's just not possible to have a fully built out ERP stack in the brief amount of time the industry has existed. And so if you think about how long it took SAP to really get ERP up and running kind of V1, it was a decade of writing like. And so a decade from now, I think we'll have one thing. I'm confident we'll have one thing in a decade. It's just a little early, that's all. Yeah. And those 5,000 AI people will probably be part of that journey, because a big part of the AI team is a marketing team. And the one thing that Bill Gates rejoined the company when Satya joined. A lot of people don't realize that. And so the one review Bill goes to every single week is the marketing AI review. It's a huge part of what we're doing. So you'll see that change as well. I mean, it's like kind of exciting to see where we're going. But great question, thanks. All right, thank you. That was great.
Any
Great
other
audience.
questions? Thank you very much.